All right, everyone, welcome back. We've got two new faces on the screen, and as I just said, we're talking AWS Amplify Flutter. Before we get into the latest with this new launch, Kyle, Ashish, why don't you give a little bit of an introduction and what y'all do here?
Sure. Hey everyone, my name is Ashish. I'm currently a tech lead on the Amplify Flutter team. I was originally on the Amplify JS team, and then we started building Amplify Flutter around like 7 to 8 months ago. Launch preview 6 months ago, and we just went GA this week. So excited to show you guys what we built.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kyle Lee. I'm also known as Kilo Loco everywhere else online, and I am a senior developer advocate here at AWS working on the Amplify team. And I generally put out videos covering things like Flutter, native iOS, and native Android development.
Welcome, both of you, and congratulations on the GA. That's a huge milestone, and I'm sure you have some awesome stuff in store to show us.
For sure.
Definitely. Well, I'm excited for what we're about to talk about, but I remember when we were sitting down to chat a little bit about what makes this launch very exciting, it was clear to us that there are a number of key people in the developer community that will be most intrigued by today's conversation. We're going to cover a little bit about what Amplify is. We're going to cover a little bit about what background on Flutter, and we'll talk about sort of the keystone of today's launch. But if you are either an existing mobile developer using Flutter, be it on AWS or elsewhere, if you are anybody who is already using AWS Amplify to accelerate building full stack apps, or if you're simply trying to accelerate building full stack apps or spin up backends that now connect more natively and quickly to your front end, I think if any of those descriptions fit you, this segment will have, and this launch will have something for you. Kyle, Ashish, does that sound fair to say?
Yeah, that's right on track. We're going to be going over some of the details of Flutter in general, like a high level view, and then we're also going to be showing off a demo, or actually two demos today.
Awesome. Well,
My ears. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Giving the audience something to look forward to right at the top of the segment. I like to hear it. Not one, but two demos. So, yeah, why don't we get into it? So this launch is Flutter support for Amplify, but let's give everyone a little bit of background. What exactly is Flutter?
So Flutter is Google's UI toolkit for building beautiful natively compiled applications on mobile, web, and desktop. It's one of the fastest growing mobile frameworks in 2020. I think it was, there was a report put out sometime in April last year in 2020 that maybe like, I think around 2 million developers are currently using Flutter, and they had like 50,000 apps in the Google Play Store as of April. And we're currently averaging around like 500,000 monthly actives. So it's like a really popular framework. And the whole value proposition is that you have like a single code base that allows you to build applications that are natively compiled for all these different platforms. And it kind of gives you a great developer experience with like hot reloading, restarting your apps quickly to see the changes that you're making, and generally like high performance and a pretty seamless experience when building applications.
Yeah.
Now, I have to ask you to also elaborate a little bit. I'm sure a lot of people have had this question at one time or another. How does Flutter compare to something like React Native?
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to give an unbiased opinion here because I've been working with React Native for quite a while. That was originally what I did on the JS team as well. So I think I can provide something fair. So I would say like both have their trade-offs. For example, React Native is JavaScript based, and the JavaScript community is huge, and there are a lot of packages out there that you can use and stuff like that. On the other hand, it all uses bridges, and there's no like there's still like uh, JavaScript being served in your application. You can't directly compile it to desktop or something using JavaScript itself, which is something that Flutter allows through Dart. Like you directly can compile to any of these platforms that they support, and that gives you a lot of flexibility. You don't have to always write bridges. You can just write applications in Dart purely, even packages purely in Dart as well. But on the other side, there is that Dart is not as popular as JavaScript yet. Like it's picking up a lot, especially because of it being used for Flutter. But then there are like less packages and plugins available, and that's exactly where we come in, right? So we have spend a lot of time and effort building Amplify support for Flutter, and that kind of allows developers to get a head start building applications with the plugins that we've built. Uh, Another thing I will say that Flutter has that I was really impressed with, that I think React Native is working on right now, is the way that the upgrades work is pretty seamless in Flutter. Like I have upgraded to new versions of Flutter multiple times in the past few months, and it's been really a great experience. I think React Native has made improvements there, but I think there's still some things to go further to make it a little better. But I think that gives you some idea between the two at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. I'm hoping we can go a little bit deeper. I mean, you mentioned Dart is the programming language behind Flutter. Can you tell us a little about Dart as a programming language?
I think Dart has been around for a number of years before Flutter. I think the ability to kind of compile to these native binaries on different platforms was added specifically for Flutter, and I think it's been giving. It's also written like using C++, so it's pretty high performance. In fact, we did a bunch of performance testing before writing the plugins to see what's the difference between writing native versus Dart, and we were pretty impressed with how Dart held up in the comparison as compared to say like just using JavaScript or something like that. So that's something I can give you. It's object oriented. It's got a lot of a good number of packages provided by Google itself that makes it easy to kind of get started with development. And even in Flutter itself, it's a little different than other UI frameworks in the fact that it doesn't use Markdown. Like it's all like using the object-oriented programming itself, just kind of different from typically how at least I've built UIs. So that's a slightly different flavor, but I think it's been well received, and there are a lot of advantages.
Yeah. Now, when you say it's object oriented, do you mean that it is kind of object oriented similar to Java and .NET, or do you mean that it's object oriented but multi-paradigm like JavaScript? So I guess what I'm driving at is with React and React Native, you have we had state class components at one point, and then now most people have migrated onto stateless components, pure function components. Is that something that you can do in Dart, or what's the mental shift that it takes to kind of go from a React developer to a Dart developer?
I think like there are a lot of comparisons between Dart and say TypeScript, Dart and say Swift, and it's quite close to the modern mobile programming languages like Kotlin and Swift. In that sense, more object oriented and at least type support as compared to a JavaScript, right? Like so, there's no like layer that you have to add on top like TypeScript or whatever. So it's more in that sense. I think if you're a native developer getting started with Flutter, you will find it quite easy to get started and familiar. And maybe Kyle can speak a little bit about that as well, because I know he used to do content on iOS predominantly, and then more recently Flutter. So maybe he can provide more color onto that.
Yeah, I think one thing that I would say about Flutter is that it is completely declarative. So it's going to be, if you're a mobile developer, it's going to be most familiar to anybody that has started working with Swift UI or Jetpack Compose, which it seems like all the mobile frameworks are kind of heading towards this declarative UI. And essentially what that means is that you are simply manipulating the state, and you have your UI update based off of any changes to the state. And that's something that we're also going to be seeing today.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd love to talk shop about the programming language, but we have so much to cover. I'll just end on one last question. Do you guys think Dart is a fun language? Do you enjoy working with it?
I think it's pretty good. There are some things that are a little different than or unexpected for me. Like for example, there's no support for overloading, which can sometimes present challenges, because what we try to do here is provide consistent interfaces across all our libraries across platforms. So that was something we had to work around. And then I think also another thing was there is no way to declare functions private or whatnot, and everything is kind of a library, and you kind of do that by declaring an underscore kind of a function, which also like different, but there are some cool things as well. I especially like, the shortcuts that you can have in the constructors and whatnot. I thought that was really cool. And I mean, overall, I've enjoyed it. And they've recently announced null safety as well. That's something we need to dig into. We've been so occupied with kind of shipping the library that, right now we're like, okay, we have to look into how do we migrate our packages. But, probably we'll speak more about that when we launch that support.
Awesome.
I think that I think
Oh, Kyle, go ahead.
oh I was just going to say some of my favorite things about the Dart language, because I honestly didn't expect to like it when I first jumped in. Two of my favorite features about Dart is just the ability to actually add logic inside of your list, so that you can be observing some type of state, and then based off of that state, it would update that list to either include or exclude that object from the list. So that's one of my favorite things to do. And then also another really cool feature about Dart is that you can do something that's called cascading, which allows you to actually create an instance of the object and also modify or utilize the properties or methods during instantiation. So those are like two of my favorite things about it.
Awesome. Well, some conversation that I feel like is probably not too familiar to most people that are AWS developers, but again, this segues well into what AWS Amplify is, and you two being the foremost experts here in this room on it. As an aside, I know my audio is only coming through one side. I'm going to try my best to fix that here in just a second. But could we walk through a little bit about what AWS Amplify is? Because I think that will give folks a much better idea of where the natural tie-in here is with Flutter.
Yeah, for sure. So AWS Amplify is basically a set of tools and services that enables mobile and front-end web developers to build scalable full stack applications powered by AWS. There are currently three main components that we have. So one of them is the open source libraries and UI components that allow you to kind of integrate your front-end application with the backend services at AWS. We have the CLI toolchain and more recently the Admin UI, which allow you to kind of create and then manage your cloud backends. And then there's also the Amplify console, which is like an AWS service that handles your deploying and hosting of the full stack serverless web applications as well. And before like Flutter came along, Amplify supported iOS, Android, JavaScript, both web and React Native. So we were already kind of serving the cross-platform space there, and it's been pretty well received. And Amplify is basically we recommend at least the quickest and easiest way to get started building applications with AWS, especially if you're more of a front-end developer and you want to think more about your application from like your unique business value proposition and stuff, and not as much about how do I set up these typical categories or use cases that you would have in every application, like auth, storage of your images and stuff, and real-time data. That's stuff that we want to make seamless for you and handle as easily as possible without you having to think about it as much. So that's really the whole goal behind Amplify. And so if I can just go a little further, I'll say that in 2018, we had like a GitHub issue on the JS repo asking for Flutter support, and it was by far the most upvoted issue that we had. Like at least 600 or more developers, asking for it in 2018, and more requests over time. And that's when we really looked into it and saw that given the plugins approach that Flutter offers, we could leverage the Amplify iOS and Android libraries to kind of build a library for Flutter by using those underneath and using the platform channels to communicate between the libraries and the Dart layer that you will integrate into your application, which is what we've kind of used to bring Amplify to Flutter developers today.
Yeah, well said. Amplify is a lot of things, but I've seen the word tossed around. Like people calling these kinds of things backend as a service. Is that a fair description? How would you amend that if you don't think it captures everything?
I wouldn't say backend as a service, because that means that, it could be possibly packaged up into a service and you couldn't kind of extend it, customize it, and things like that. At least that's my understanding of the term you mentioned. I would say it's more of like an abstraction over the backend that also allows you to kind of customize when you need to. We have this concept of escape hatches, which means you can kind of like, although we provide these high level use case based APIs and functionality, you do always have the ability to kind of, go down to the service specific functionality and do customizations for advanced use cases if you need to. So it's really like, I would say, more of an abstraction. And like, it provides basically a category based programming model for each of your use cases, like I mentioned, like auth, storage, real-time data through data store, and analytics, things like that. And like, as compared to the SDKs, which I'm sure a lot of the audience members would have seen, like, it's not like, service specific APIs, it's more of like use case specific. So like in data store, you will say data store.save, which is you're just basically concerned about the result of that use case, rather than how is this being implemented locally when you're using SQLite on native versus IndexedDB on web, and if your backend is Dynamo versus like a REST backend or something like that. So it really simplifies that. But you can always, switch out the storage adapter locally. You can always put a different backend behind AppSync and as a data source. So it is very much customizable in that sense. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and of course, I think personally, I'm excited about Amplify and have been excited about Amplify since its announcement because of its integration with AppSync and therefore vending GraphQL endpoints for your web and mobile applications. That's just music to my ears.
Same here.
So speaking of which, and please, if my audio is crackling out there in the audience, let me know. I'm trying to work through the elements here, it seems, with live production. But, apparently might be a little loud. Anyway, so it's clear that there's a lot to be done in making it more efficient for developers to spin up backends, in this case on AWS. It's clear that Flutter helps to sort of improve that developer experience for authoring front-end apps and deploying those for cross-platform, or doing sort of code once and build for multiple platforms. So my naive assumption here, as someone who's not too deep in the front-end world, is, does this support now make it significantly easier to build end-to-end front-end apps? And if that's the case, what are the pain points that people were previously working with that they had to get past that this launch hopefully now resolves?
Right. So I think there are two things. One is, if you were a developer looking to build an application that you knew you wanted to have for multiple platforms, right? So I think the Flutter team itself kind of, like, I'll talk about their value proposition first because of the platform. So like, one is you want to reach every potential user, right? And that means that would be on iOS, Android, web or desktop. So this is like something that most developers who are building applications would typically want to target as many people as they could. So that's why you want to build cross-platform. You also want it to be native because you want the best performance for that particular platform. Everyone knows the difference between like a real native app versus like a web view running in a native kind of shell. So like, this kind of solves that problem. Performance is a big part of the whole thing. And also it is not so, for large number of applications, like, it is costly, and also not always necessary to kind of have different teams rebuilding the same application for different platforms. And that can lead to sometimes, one platform comes out first, the other doesn't. And you don't have all your users being able to use the application at a time. It's more expensive. And also consistency across the different platforms. Now, of course, there are trade-offs as to why that would make sense in certain applications. It's not like a one size fits all problem, but it does fit a lot of use cases and applications today. So that's really the value proposition of cross-platform, and how Flutter is kind of providing that to the community right now. And then it comes to Amplify. Right now you have like this cross-platform framework, but you still need to figure out how you're going to build your application. Let's say you're building something like Instagram, right? And you have to sign up your users. You need to provide a way for them to sign in. Auth is a hard problem that you don't necessarily always have to reinvent unless you have very specific needs. And then even about the actual application itself, right? You will have images, you'll have posts and comments. So you want to have a way to model that data. You want to have a way to persist that data. If you're having mobile apps, you like we've seen in all these applications, right? If you post something offline, it's there. You come back online, it gets synced to the server. All of those cases, right? And Amplify kind of provides a solution for that for you through like the Auth category, which allows you to use either social providers or Cognito to like sign up, sign in, and handle all those use cases for Auth for your users, real time and offline through data store, which we'll be demoing today. So I'll let the demo speak to the value, but really like it kind of provides a really intuitive programming model for real-time data, offline use cases, and kind of sync and conflict resolution as well. So basically all these kind of use cases are simplified through Amplify, and then bringing it to multiple platforms through like a cross-platform framework like Flutter.
I just want to make one clarification here, and you tell me if it's fair. When we talk about these cross-platform applications, it's not mobile apps, which mobile apps can also include a lot of games. I mean, mobile devices, games are some of the most popular app categories, but Flutter is not a game framework. It's not really the tool for that per se, right? My understanding is that you can build some simple games with it, but it's not really the right model or the fit. Is that a fair summary?
So I'm not sure, like, I like to dive deep on these things before I state that, because like I've seen a lot of things mentioned in the past about React Native, like like a blanket statement like React Native performance isn't great, and like for most of the cases that we've built, performance was pretty good. So like it really depends on the type of game you're talking about, and I haven't like dived that deep into animations and stuff, and maybe someone more uh, experienced in that facet of programming with Flutter can speak to it more. But I will say, like, I have seen game apps being built before. They were, I would say, like mobile game apps like are not comparable to say like console apps, right? Like they don't have to be as performant, but there are limitations, I think, in animations, which are always like there with cross-platform, at least to start, and it keeps getting better. The teams like kind of focus on that, but it's really a question more for the Flutter team than for us, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And what about if let's say you were building games on mobile? That's one of the reasons you look for a cross-platform solution. Is Amplify still a good fit as far as your backend goes?
I think so. Like you can do a lot of things. Like you still need to register and log in your users. You'll have assets in there, like for your profile and those kind of things. Other images, we'll provide that through the storage category. Uh, you know, uh, Notifications, real-time updates for your scores and like other kinds of data in your application. So all of that will be handled. Uh, Maybe analytics, you want to track a particular kind of campaign, you're running something, you can use Pinpoint for that. So definitely there are use cases and Amplify can provide a lot of value.
Yeah, I'm actually going to sort of circle back to one of the key audience demographics that we mentioned at the top of the segment, which was maybe you're already on AWS and you have some sort of backend, but you may not be using Amplify. Maybe you use Flutter, though, in some capacity. Can I take now with this Amplify Flutter support, this tool chain, and connect that to an existing AWS backend? Because you mentioned before the Amplify on the backend makes it easy to provision these resources. But what if I'm already an AWS customer that has existing resources? Do I have to spin these back up from scratch, or can I sort of tie those in together naturally?
So I definitely, it allows you to work with existing backends. So you can do In fact, that support is getting better. Like the CLI recently launched something that allows you to import your resources, because the way we currently do it is you add your resources, you do an Amplify push, and we create stuff, and that kind of comes in this configuration file in your application. And sometimes, like it's not a great user experience to always input that manually, and you can make mistakes. So they've been working on a way to just import your resources. That makes it a lot easier. But definitely you can use, if you use a Cognito already, if you use AppSync already, storage like through S3, all of this can be, incorporated into Amplify. You may have to look at your specific setup. Like for example, in some cases, certain policies need to be adjusted and stuff like that. So, you know, I would say if you're getting started, it's quicker. If you have existing resources, depending on your use cases, you will have to tweak a little bit. Maybe sometimes it is just, as simple as embedding it in the configuration file structure. Like for AppSync, for example, if you're using API key, you just put that in there. Usually it works fine. Maybe some more detail has to be diving deeper has to be done for cases like S3 buckets and whatnot, if you're using specific folders and whatnot, just to map it to Amplify's programming model. But definitely easier than just using it directly using service-specific APIs. I think if you're looking to get started and build your application faster. One more thing I will say is, like, even for data store or for AppSync, right? Like I've met with some customers who are like, hey, we have this REST API and we want to migrate it over to Amplify, and how do we do that with AppSync? So like you don't even have to always use Dynamo or something right away. You can write the resolvers for your REST APIs and stuff and do it progressively, or keep it as it is. Like there's a lot of flexibility, and Amplify lets you work with your existing resources for sure.
Yeah, one thing I was just going to say is that, when you were describing some of the features for Amplify categories, and again, for folks that are very familiar, maybe this is a little rehash, but when you describe the functionality, you describe the functionality separate from any of the services that power it under the hood. And you mentioned it's an abstraction, but things like authentication and authorization, things like just having an API layer and, that backs that with any arbitrary business logic, analytics, storage, these are just like fundamental capabilities that any application needs. And so, when you're talking about, hey, I want to use Amplify, what do I have to learn? The fact that you don't have to learn all of those services and the SDKs and the APIs underpinning them, like DynamoDB and Aurora, if you want to use, let's say, or RDS, for example. That's really powerful. I'd imagine that helps people get up to speed even quicker. But one other thing I wanted to talk about was, we talk a lot here at AWS about how we drive our roadmaps. And oftentimes we say, well, all of the time we say that that's from customer feedback. We try to work backwards from what the customer wants. Now, I've been in tune with Amplify as a service and an open source project, and I think your team has a very unique way of achieving this that not every team at AWS abides by. Do you want to talk a little bit to that? Because I think you all do a really good job of directly involving that community feedback in the open. So if we could talk to that, I think that would be really cool.
Absolutely. Like this is, absolutely living true to the customer obsession and working backwards mindset. And we try to incorporate that as much as possible. So even the inception of the Flutter library itself, like I mentioned before, right, was from our most upvoted GitHub issue on the JS repo. And like, I think you have the link if you want to share it on the chat, or even pull it up on the screen if you would like. You can see like it was a really like upvoted issue, massive demand, and consistent. Like it wasn't like it came once and that was it. Throughout like 2018, 2019, people asking for Flutter support, and we take that stuff very seriously when customers want us to build something and we see the need. So we investigated, and once Flutter was stable for mobile, and we did some investigation once Amplify iOS and Android were GA, that how can we build this library leveraging the plugins packages based approach to kind of be able to build support for all these use cases and categories using Amplify iOS and Android under the hood. And we did some prototyping, all of which happened, in less than a year. We were able to validate that this works, and we started out with the preview in August, which had support for Auth, storage, and analytics. And the whole idea behind that was, get more feedback from customers, and let's see what they want us to build next. Let's see what we got right. Let's see what they would like us to kind of update or modify slightly. So it's all about that constant feedback. And I don't know if you can share your screen on this, but if you go to the Amplify Flutter repo, right, you will see RFCs being pinned all the time. And there is one RFC for the Amplify library itself as a whole. That was like, where we were talking about the approach itself for the design of the library. Then, what categories are coming first, how we're building them. And then we had RFCs for specific categories as well. Like, when we were building data store, especially, like that was one of the most challenging categories to build because of all the code gen and like translating these types, right, that are native to your language down to the platform for iOS and Android, and then serializing all of that for the it was a lot of different edge cases that had to be handled, and then just getting feedback about the APIs. What do the Flutter community think is the right way to go about it? Same way for REST and GraphQL. So as and when we were launching, we put out RFCs, we put out initial designs, we updated those based on feedback, and in general, I think that has served both us well in terms of deciding what to do next, and of course our customers, because it allows us to deliver the experience that they're looking for.
This is all really exciting stuff. I mean, one of the things that I remember seeing you guys release pretty recently was the admin UI, right? And if I understand correctly, this is something that this is something, by the way, so this is something that almost every application ends up building, is like, hey, you have some users interacting with your typical application on the front end, but then there's some administration of the application data or permissions or logs or workflows or what have you. And so oftentimes you end up with this, whether it's a web app or whatever, but you have like this admin UI that you have to build, which itself takes a whole bunch of effort and cycles. And now you have two code bases that you have to manage. And my understanding is that the admin UI feature from Amplify tackles that problem. Is that correct?
Right. I think currently we support the data, auth, and storage use cases there. And like you'll see in our demo today, right? Like it makes it really intuitive to even build out your data model and then manage your data, your users and stuff like that. And I think actually Kyle has done a number of videos on this, so I will probably let him speak on it more because he would have done it for multiple front ends. That's another thing, right? You might have like different front ends for your application and this one management through the admin UI. So Kyle, you can give more perspective to that, I think.
Yeah, so the admin UI, especially in regards to being able to build out your data schema, is really great because what it does is it allows you to see like a visual representation of what your GraphQL schema would look like when you're working with something like the GraphQL API, or if you're going to be working with data store, which is the recommended path, because it comes with things built in like automatically syncing to DynamoDB and offline persistence and things like that. So it's really great because if you don't know much about AWS services or GraphQL or anything like that, the awesome thing is that the admin UI kind of like helps you get through all of that stuff and just get up and running. And I think that's one of the most important things about admin UI and what it provides, is that you don't need to know all the different AWS services. You don't need to know things like GraphQL to get your app up and running, and you don't even have to look at code in order to get these things going. You could just like kind of think about the schema and build it out right there in front of you, build the relationships as well. And yeah, it just kind of works. So one little story that I have is when Admin UI first came out, I was playing with it and I wanted to build out an app. And what I actually did was I had to go run an errand, and I was still thinking about how I was going to build this app out. So sometimes you just don't get to fix the bug right away, right? So it's like still playing in your mind and you're trying to figure it out. The awesome thing is that I pulled up the sandbox on my phone and still built out the schema, and I was actually able to figure out how to build this relationship on the go. I was like waiting for my pizza, and then when I came out, like I got home and I was like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I need to do. And then I transferred it over and I pulled it down and I was able to get going. So it's really nice.
Certainly speaks to the power of GraphQL, and then its use in data store and all of that. And like whenever I think about Amplify, I know we were discussing the best way to describe it before, but I think it is no more obvious than the fact that Amplify makes it easier for you to do things and makes you able to do them quicker when it comes to your infrastructure. Like reduce the time to value as much as possible, whether it's spinning up some of your backend components now, whether it's being able to tie your backend to the front end like Flutter. And anytime we talk about something being easier or making it quick, making an existing workflow quicker, I think that's something that doesn't come across as well in a doc as it does in a demo. So if either of you gentlemen want to show us what this is going to look like, I know you said we have 2 examples to look forward to. I think the audience would really enjoy that.
Yeah, did you want me to start going through the demo right now?
Yeah, we could do that. I also want to take a chance to look at that GitHub issue, but we could do that either first before the demo, or we could do that after.
We could take a look at the issue first, and then we could do the issue, or we could do the demo after we review the issue.
Okay, cool. Ashish or Kyle, Ashish, if you don't mind, if you want to pull that issue up, I know you have the link, and then share your screen. We'll be able to take a look at that really quickly.
Oh, I don't have the link. So if you want, we could just actually go straight through the demo then.
Yeah, I can send it to you, Kyle, and then you can kind of, just show that and then move on to the demo if that makes sense.
Yeah, that'd be great.
You're sharing the screen anyway, and
we're playing musical chairs with production here. Sorry, Kyle, or hot potato, I guess, whichever way you want to say it.
Oh, no problem. Let me share my screen, and here we go. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yep, looking at your wallpaper right now.
Awesome. All right, so here we go. This is the issue that was brought up, and in regards to like how popular it actually is. So this is specifically showing the Flutter support, and it was actually logged under the AWS Amplify JS area. So as you can see, there was quite a great deal of interaction. Was there anything that you wanted to speak to specifically, Ashish?
Yeah, I mean, you can see just the number of upvotes right there. And if you scroll through, you'll see like, people consistently asking for this over time. And, we immediately got back that, it's not something that we are currently having on our roadmap, but we were, immediately starting to look into how we can make this possible. And at that time, we didn't have the Amplify iOS and Android libraries, but as soon as those were GA, we could start our prototyping and, moving towards actually building and validating the library. Kyle, I sent you another link as well, which is like an example of an RFC that we have that we open on the Flutter repo. And we've done this for the library in general, as well as, specific categories and implementations and stuff. If you just scroll down a little bit, you can see like, our proposed solution. And then if you go down, you'll see, the way we diagrammed it out and, our tenets and stuff like that. And if you go through, you'll see like all the way down a bunch of comments all the way through as we launched things for preview, as we got more feedback. Like, basically it's been, we put this out, we got some feedback, what people wanted. We decided auth, storage, analytics makes sense to go with first. We got that out. And then people asked for, data store. We started working on that. We had designs for that. We had RFCs for those. And, basically you can see chronologically requests for the feature, our feedback, our questions to get customer feedback on those, and then delivering it. And you can see like basically the whole delivery of the different features play out and customer feedback throughout.
Yeah, and before we get into the demo, I think that I want to summarize exactly what you had just said, which is you see the full chronology there on that initial GitHub issue. There was the first request for feature in 2018. You see over time it adds upvotes. But one of the things that I think is sort of important here is that first response there. I believe he's from the Amplify team coming out and saying, "Hey, we appreciate this. We're going to mark this as a feature request." But also saying we don't plan to have this as a feature right now, and that's the two-way street of open source, right? It's not just saying, hey, file issues as sort of this top of the funnel for aggregating feature requests. We're going to actually engage with developers where they are, so they know right now, hey, sorry, this isn't around the horizon. But then way down on the page, eventually, I think his name is Matt, comes back and says, okay, we are now putting this in one of our upcoming releases. And so that folks know when we're working on something, when we're not working on something. And I think that this is really the healthy way to engage with the open source community for a product in Amplify, which is so fundamentally open source by its nature. So right. when I see this done in this way, I think that, as you can see in this thread, there's a lot of trust that gets built with the developer community and the user community. And I think trust is very important when using something like an open source project, which, open source only has so many promises, different from a managed service. But when you really earn that trust through delivering in the right way, I guess I could say, to the open source community, that sort of that two-way trust exists. So
absolutely agree with that. I just want to point out that the person is Michael Lebeniak, and he, full credit to him. He, I think, was one of the people who kind of started the whole open source Amplify libraries, like with JS, and then over time the iOS and Android libraries, and then Flutter as well. So really kind of embracing the open source mindset, like you said, and being honest with customers and using their feedback to kind of deliver features iteratively, and the whole concept of preview, right? Because we know that it's not always that you just get things right in your first attempt, and this is really kind of showing how we engage with customers to get the feedback and refine over time, add more functionality. So yeah, absolutely what you said.
Awesome. Well, Kyle, we've jumped on your toes enough here, getting ahead of this demo. Let's see what you've got to share.
Yeah, sure. So we're going to be doing 2 different demos today. So we're going to be covering your classic to-do app. I think it's something that everybody is kind of familiar with, but it kind of goes to show anybody that's not familiar with Flutter or not familiar with Amplify, just like the basics ins and outs. So we'll actually build out that to-do app, and we're actually going to be using Data Store, and I'll be showing you how to go through the Admin UI for Amplify. And then in the second demo, we're actually going to be building out a photo gallery app. So the photo gallery app will actually allow the user to sign in, or will sign up, sign in, and then upload photos. And then those photos that are uploaded will be specific to the user that is signed in. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to start over here at sandbox.amplifyapp.com, and it's going to take us to a page like this, which is really nice because we can just say get started, and we're going to be working with the data category right now. Now you can go ahead and select either of these 2 starter projects. We're going to be making a to-do app, but just to show you how easy it is to get up and running with Admin UI, I'm going to start off with a blank schema. From here, what we do is we just simply add a model, and I'll obviously call it to do. No spaces, no equals, but then we just go ahead and add in the different properties. Now, this is exactly what I was referring to when I said that it's so easy to get up and running and kind of see your data modeled out like right in front of you with like a GUI, right? So as you can see, I have these 3 properties, of ID, which is required so that we can actually store this in a database. We have the body, which is going to hold on to the information of the to-do. And then also the is complete flag, which is not a string. We want to change that to a Boolean, make sure that's right. So from here, once you're all done building out your data schema, what you could do is you can go to next test locally, right? And all of this part is completely free. You could do this in incognito mode in your browser or whatever you want. And you can actually pull your project down locally, and it'll actually show you how to do it. So you go ahead and choose your platform. We're working with cross-platform today, and we're going to be working with Flutter. We go next. It's going to recommend that you create a Flutter project and get that going. Then it's going to let you install the CLI, which is required in order for you to actually run the next command, which is going to pull your sandbox. So whatever we did over here in model, whatever was created right here is going to be pulled down to your machine locally. So that's what the sandbox ID is, and it's going to have like, you know, a UUID or something like that. Then it's going to actually tell you how to get started and get this implemented into your Flutter project, which is also really nice because you can just simply hover over copy. You can copy, look at it, copies like all the relevant stuff, not all the junk, right? So that's really nice. So you can go through, copy, paste, and put all this stuff in your project. And then it even goes as far as showing you how to implement these objects, right? So as you can see, we had a body and a is complete property on our schema, and it tells you how to create, how to update, how to delete, how to query for all this stuff. So it really just guides you through this entire process. Now, I could be done right here if I was only interested in testing this out locally, but in this demo, I actually want to show how to sync data between devices. And for that, you will actually need an AWS account, in which case you would either sign up or log in. Now, this process does take about 5 minutes. I'm going to skip the wait, and I'm actually going to show you the project after it's already been built out. All I did right here was just simply deploy.
Can we just jump in there? Is there any way we can bring back up that screen where we were looking at your data model and the code samples for?
Oh, you know what? I don't know if I can do it. Let's see.
Okay.
Might be able to do it. All right, there we go.
Yeah, so if you go back to the test tab, okay, well, I just want to talk to this point real quick. I am so amazed by this. The fact is, like, the fact that we're looking at code samples for how to do this from your front end is so nice, because most of the time, what are you actually talking about, right? A developer going through this is, if they're talking about persisting data, you know, whether it's on the application or whether it's on the back end, ultimately, they're typically looking at docs that are at the database layer, right? You know, create, read, update, delete for a document in DynamoDB or RDS or what have you. But that's not it, right? So that has to sit at a persistence layer underneath the business logic on the service, which is running somewhere behind some API. Maybe that's REST, maybe that's GraphQL, maybe that's SOAP, right? And then that's behind a big API gateway somewhere with SSL and all that stuff. But what you're showing here just cuts through all of that.
It just cuts through. The awesome thing about Amplify, and this is what I really love about it, is that I come from a mobile developer background, and mobile developers aren't generally familiar with how to do like backend. Essentially, like, these are two completely different skill sets, right? And actually, I think a lot of the time AWS services can be overwhelming to somebody coming from a mobile backend. I know that they definitely were for me. When Amplify came out with the native SDKs, and then also the Flutter SDK, or the libraries, I should say, it's awesome because not only do you not need to know how all this stuff works under the hood and what services you need to do, you just choose a category that you're interested in. Do I want to save data? Do I want to save files? What do I need to log somebody in? And you just work specifically with that category, and you don't need to know anything that's going on under the hood. Now, the awesome part about that is also it's a learning experience, because since Amplify has came out, I've actually learned more about the AWS services and what is going on under the hood, because I wanted to do more advanced use cases. So then I'm learning the stuff that's actually relevant for me. So when I see 150 different services that AWS provides, I don't need to guess which one I need to work with. I just simply work with the ones that are relevant to my project.
That's true. Yeah, well said. I mean, it is definitely a lot to take in, right? I mean, 150 services and counting, and when we're
counting, yeah, it's more than that, but yeah.
So I think, yeah, you're calling out a really key value proposition of Amplify, which is its opinionated take on how to build applications within AWS. Even that alone, like, even if that is not bundled up as a service or as an SDK, even if that's just documentation alone, customers are already benefiting.
Yes, absolutely. And the documentation is beautiful too. I'll just throw that out there.
Another thing I was going to say here is, you know, we look at these CRUD operations there at the bottom: create, update, delete, query. A lot of the foundational services at AWS get updated over time. That value is then passed on to you as a user of that service. But even the creation of entirely new services that may be able to power some of those CRUD operations on the back end. I'm thinking of things like, hey, AWS released TimeStream this past year, and maybe storage of time series data can just be handled automatically by something like GraphQL and Amplify here at a certain point down the line, and you may never have to learn how to use an underlying TimeStream database. So it's like the force multiplier of investing your time to learn something like Amplify here seems to pay dividends, not just immediately, but in terms of all of the different ways AWS is innovating to optimize on your behalf in the long run.
Absolutely. I mean, you're taking advantage of all the power of AWS without really having to go through a long process to get up and running.
Awesome. Well, and then final thing, I think, before we go back to where we derailed you before, but the fact that this is all possible completely outside of an AWS account, like everything that you just showed us is essentially this supercharged wizard that will craft, instead of having to live inside of a set of configs or in JSON or YAML, you just answer a handful of very simple questions that you have to know at the surface level, and you can entirely pull that down and test it on a mocked local version before you ever even start thinking about your AWS account or billing or anything to that effect. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. Like I could have gone through all of this in Cognito, and been completely fine without signing up for a AWS account, and everything would have worked, which is really awesome because you get to test it out and see how you actually like it without having to make any commitments.
Wonderful. Again, a very foreign sort of concept for experienced AWS users, where the starting point is always the console, and so we stopped saying that at a certain point. But here, our starting point was this sandbox here with Amplify. That's just a public wizard, a public service. So always happy to call that out.
Afterly. So now the next couple of parts are going to be once you actually deploy your app and you do have like an AWS account, and even after you deploy your app, there's still the free tier that you can still opt into and take advantage of it for 12 months, and you can still continue to test this out, but with like a real backend. So as you can see here, it looks like it needs to be refreshed, or maybe it just went away. Oh, it seemed to sign me out. So let me see if I could sign back in.
The joys of session expiration.
Yeah.
So it's how you know it's a live show, folks. It's all unplanned. But yeah, we've got. Oh, all right, cool. Sign back in.
All right. So once you deploy your app from the sandbox, then it brings you to a screen like this. And after all the deployment is done, you just simply open up this Admin UI. It'll take you to a screen that looks similar to this. Now I have already selected the data tab, but it will look like a home screen like this. So if you go over to the data tab, then you see the exact same thing that you actually created in the sandbox. And the awesome thing from here is, once again, it just still gives you all that information that you're interested in, pulling this specific project down into your local project directory. You just do it with one command. You can also, once again, take a look at all the different implementations. The create, read, update, and delete is still all right here, which is still, I think, pretty cool. And then, yeah, you just simply copy this and then you go to your project. So now we're over here in our to-do demo. Let me go ahead and run this just so that we can see what's going on. There's not a lot going on. It's just going to show a loader at the beginning. But what I'll do is I'll simply paste in this command, and what we'll actually see is that it's going to ask me a couple of questions, and it will actually configure our project for us. So I want to draw attention over here to the library, the lib folder. And you'll notice that at the moment, there is only the main and the to-do view in here. Right now, it's making sure that we can log in. So I need to say yes to that in our browser. All right. And then it's going to ask me like a couple of like just general questions about how we're handling this project. So Visual Studio, we're going to make sure we specify Flutter. Yes, we want to keep all the configuration files in the lib folder. And as you can see, it's starting to add stuff in here. So now we have this Amplify configuration file, and then we also have the models that were generated for us. More specifically, we have this to do, which was generated in native Dart code. So now you're just working with just your typical object, and you can actually continue to work with this without data store. You don't necessarily have to save it. So if you're just interested in modeling out data in a GUI, you could do that too. So yeah, now what we want to do is we want to head back over to our app, and let's see if it's been pulled up yet. All right, looks like it's still going. Do we plan on modifying this backend? Yes. And let's see. Oh, I'm running it on the wrong thing. I'm trying to run it on a different device, and I want to run it on the iPhone. That's what I want. There we go.
The joys of cross-platform development.
Yeah, so I'm actually trying to build it out for the simulator right here, which we can see. And what we can do in the meantime while it's still building, because Flutter takes probably about 30 seconds for the first load to go through, and then it's a little bit faster after that because we have a feature called hot reload in Flutter that allows you to update the UI by just simply saving a page. It's very similar to web development, where you just are maybe on localhost, you make a change to your HTML file, you save it, you do a reload, and bam, you can see the different changes. So the first thing that we're going to do is let's go ahead and start building out some of the Amplify specific stuff for inside of our main.dart. So what I want to do is I'll create a to-do, which is going to be our, we want to configure Amplify. So as you can see, we have this code right here, and I actually need to import some of this stuff. Now, before the video, I've actually added in the different libraries that we need. So I want to make sure that this is updated and we pull those libraries locally. As you can see, we're going to be working with Amplify Flutter, which is like the core library. It provides like all the underlying stuff for each of the other plugins. Then we have the storage. Actually, this is not. This is not the correct file. Let me pull this up again.
No worries. While we're waiting for you to pull that up again, live show, if you have any questions for Kyle, Ashish, anyone here with the recent Amplify Flutter launch that we're seeing in action here, get it in chat and we will try to discuss it here on the stream.
All right, so right now you can see that our app has actually been pulled up, and like I said, it's just a loading screen at the beginning because we are starting from we're starting like very fresh. So now that we have like the Amplify libraries inside of our project, then what I want to do is I want to start making sure that all the import statements are added at the top. So each of these things just need to be imported, and it's pretty easy to do, but it's a little bit lengthy. All right, so, and I'm about to go back over what's going on in this block of code. So we have, and let's comment that out for the second. So we have this function that's called configure amplify. You'll notice that the syntax is very similar to Java or maybe even C#. I haven't played with C# before, but I think it might be very similar. And what we're doing is we're adding two different plugins. So we need to add the data store plugin, and we need to add the API plugin. Oh, well, three different plugins. And then since we came from the sandbox, which automatically adds the auth directive to our GraphQL, we're also going to be adding in the Amplify auth plugin as well. Once we do that, then we're going to configure Amplify, and it's going to take in this string, which is in this file in our Amplify configuration.dart, which contains all the information specific to working directly with that Amplify project that's in your backend. So it has all the information about the like DynamoDB and Cognito and things like that. And since we're going to be working with auth, what we want to do is we want to add that category to our Amplify project, because right now we've only added API through Admin UI, but we want to also add in auth, and we'll do that in the CLI, the Amplify CLI. So we'll do Amplify add auth like that.
And just A very quick terminology check for the folks that are not as familiar with Amplify. Amplify categories. A category is, to the best of my understanding, like a functional component. So an example here you mentioned is auth, but then like storage or analytics would be different examples of Amplify. Amplify. Sorry, now I'm blanking on the word too. Categories. An Amplify category. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like use case specific categories. So like what type of thing are we trying to accomplish today? Well, we're trying to accomplish, data store, which is like database, right? And then auth, which is authentication for the user and things like that. So we're actually not going to sign in the user. So we'll just enter in all the default values right here. All we're really interested in is actually getting the auth category set up with our Amplify app. And then once we added that Amplify the auth category, now we need to push those changes which we made locally to the back end. So it's going to give us a quick summary of what is being done. And we'll see that we will have API already in our status, which is going to show up right now, but it's also going to create this auth category for us, and it's going to push that to the back end. Now, while that goes, let's talk about a little bit of what we need to do here. So we have this configure amplify function, right? And we want to call this immediately when the app starts, because we can't use amplify without it being properly configured. So if you try to use amplify before it's configured, then what's going to happen is you're going to either run into a bug or it may even crash the app. So what we want to do is, as soon as this object, which is our app state, is initialized, then we're going to actually call this configure method, right? So we're going to make sure that we call configure as soon as the app launches, essentially. Now we also want to be able to keep track of whether Amplify is configured or not. So what we can do is we can add a flag which we can observe and see if Amplify is configured. Then when we call configure Amplify immediately after the app starts, then we'll set is configured to true, assuming that everything goes through smoothly, right? Now, this set state is a very interesting part of Flutter because Flutter is, like I said, very declarative. And what it's doing is it's observing state in order to determine what the UI should be looking like and rendered out to, right? So we're telling Flutter, hey, we're making a change to the state, and you need to rebuild the view based off of whatever is being observed right here. In this case, we don't have anything yet. So what we want to do is we want to update the scaffold to say, hey, if is Amplify configured is set to true, then we want to show one screen, but if not, then we'll continue to show the loading screen. So we can do that with, I think I added a shortcut in here with scaffold like that. So as you can see, we're using a ternary operation. So we're checking a Boolean right here. We're essentially asking a question. If it's true, then we'll show this to-do view. If it's false, then we'll continue to show this loading view. Any questions so far?
Yeah, where's the to-dos view coming from? I saw that you can resolve that and get the imports auto-filled, but how did that, yeah, can we go to that file?
Yeah, absolutely. So the to-dos view is, I've already created it, and it's just a simple stateful widget object, which is like your base type of UI based object in Flutter. And right now it's not doing anything. And if I were to actually show it right now, it would actually crash the app or show like a error at least. But we'll go through and we'll implement that right now, and we're going to update to show that. So what I wanted to point out is that we actually finished updating our resources in the cloud. So Auth has now been pushed. And what we have to do is start building out our to-do view. So we wanted to actually start rendering some stuff out to the screen. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to show the empty to-dos view. And I think I have something in here for empty to-dos view. So this will just be like a text in the middle of the screen that says no to-dos yet. And let's see, we could return a scaffold. So this will be the body, and we will simply return the empty to-dos view. So now we'll no longer get a crash if we show this view, because now it's going to have some type of view to show, which is just this text in the middle of the screen. Let's go ahead, go back over to our app, make sure that everything's saved and is updated, and let's do a hot restart. And now let's take a look at our app. So if we take a look over here, we're looking, and it looks like we have probably run into an error. Let's see. Let me let me stop it and do a restart, and let's see what happens. So at this point, we're just simply configuring Amplify, and as long as we're able to successfully configure Amplify, then we will be showing the to-dos view, which will just be the empty screen, right?
Yeah, and to recap sort of from the moment you jumped into the IDE, we've essentially taken your whatever your code is that you authored for this basic to-do app, and we've essentially just been putting in boilerplate code to enable Amplify to work seamlessly on the back end with the Flutter front end that a mobile developer would have been using here, right?
That's correct. So we've been building out some of the UI, but we also have gone through the configuration process of the app. So now you can see that we get the log in here. It's kind of small, so I'll just point to the app that it's showing that that it did end up showing. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't see if it showed the circular progress indicator, but we can see that the to-dos view is now being displayed, and that's only possible if Amplify has been successfully configured. So now we can continue to build out the rest of our view. So we're going to have things like a nav bar, right? So we're going to have this nav bar, and then inside the nav bar, we might have something like this filter button, which I have right here. So we want to be able to filter between the to-dos and show what is actually possible. So we can have this filter button, and then also inside that filter button, we're going to have like different options to choose from. So filter. So there we go. We have this, we have a filter button, which I'm going to show right now. And we have our floating action button as well. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that this nav bar is part of our app. So up here in the scaffold, which is the thing that kind of manages how our app is displayed and makes it look really pretty and like a normal iOS application or normal native application, we're going to put in our navigation bar like so. And one cool thing is if I save it right now, what's going to happen is it should update the view over here. But it looks like it didn't. So unfortunately, the problem is that I have a couple of things that are not finished. So we have like functions that are not completed, and that's why it didn't run. But if I comment out some of this stuff and everything is, we don't have any more compile errors. If I save it, we should see that, bam, we have the to-do right here, and we have like the different options which we can choose from as well.
And
so yeah,
I just wanted to jump in because, like as someone who's not super proficient in front end, and I've used Amplify before for web apps, a lot of what you're exploring here and like some of the roadblocks you're running into when you make a code change and it doesn't render, sometimes those are the things that folks at home get stuck with. I know we have some comments over on LinkedIn that are saying it's awesome to get to see you really just end to end doing this, because you may follow the same set of instructions that a developer at home might, but when they get stuck with some of these compilation errors, they may not know as effectively how to get past it. So seeing that firsthand, we appreciate it. I know that some of the people in the audience do as well. So thank you for running through the bugs and being so quick with that. Even though this is a live demo, you're doing great.
I promise you that this is a lot more nerve-wracking when things don't work and people are watching you. Just think about your manager watching over your back while you're making errors, and you're like, I know how to do this. I promise I know what I'm doing. But of course it shows up like there's going to be bugs, and that's just how live demos go.
Kyle, I think you're just people watching. If everything's too smooth, I think that's actually a worse experience for the person watching, because then the fact is that these are the issues that they're hitting, right? And when they see you making those same mistakes, they know that you're there and they see how you fix it, and they just have more confidence that this is all real. So don't worry about it. It's live, it's a live show. It happens to all of us.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So then I won't worry the fact that I'm sweating then. All right.
I just
So
want to point out the hot reload is actually really great for this thing that you folks are just mentioning, because it allows you to do the trial and error thing so much faster. You can immediately see, if you got an error and fix that, or even if it succeeded, right? Sometimes the UI doesn't look like you wanted, and having to build the apps constantly is so much slower for you to get that feedback as compared to hot reloading. So it's really like one of the big advantages of cross-platform and Flutter.
yeah,
So
real quick, like let's say that this view was actually like 3 layers deep, right? You have to click on a post, and then you have to go onto the profile and then do something like that. That's one of the really cool things about Flutter, is that you can do a hot reload on that specific page that you're specifically interested in, and as opposed to writing code, rebuilding the app, going all the way back through. I mean, it seems like it wouldn't be too bad, but it definitely can be, a huge time saver when you're working in like deeply nested apps, and you get those deeply nested states or views that you need to update.
I've got a question here. So when you're talking about hot reloading, this is an incredible feature for accelerating the dev test cycle. But are we able to do things like this? I guess this is more of a Flutter question, but let's say I had an input box or a text box, and I type some text in it, and then I do a hot reload. Is the state for that text lost?
Actually, that's the very interesting thing, is that it's not lost. It stays there, and I'll actually demonstrate that in a couple seconds when we get the
Okay.
the ability to input the users to do information. But yeah, like that's like it's kind of crazy, right? Like but you also have to it's good for actually debugging some problems, right? Because what I've found is that there are situations where you need to actually clear out the state, and if you do a hot reload, then what will happen is, if you didn't clear that state out properly, then it will actually bounce back to the original, depending on your navigation, it'll go back to that original screen because you didn't manage the state correctly. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, love to see
Actually
it.
similar to, like, say, React on the web, right? Like your state won't go when you make a change and it refreshes the app. But it does offer something like hot restart, which lets you clear the state. So there is that option as well.
Yeah, you have the option between the two. Okay, so let's get back to some of the UI components. To-dos list is another thing that I built out as well. So this is just going to simply list out all the different to-dos, and you can see that it's taking in, it's called the list view builder, and we're going to have, like, it's going to specify the count, and then we also need to build out the specific UI for this. So once I get some of these other things in here, like the presented to-dos, like the different properties, then I'll go back through this and I'll show you what's going on here. So let's start getting these properties in here so that we can actually see this to-dos list, or at least have it be able to save, right? So we can have TD properties, I think is what I had it under. And there's a couple of different properties that we have in here. So I added in this to-do title controller. This is what's going to keep track of the state of the user's input. We have the show incomplete or incomplete only. So that's going to be what we're going to be updating for our filter button right here. We have the list of to-dos. Now we don't have to-do imported. We'll make sure that we import that at the top. But we have like this list of to-dos, which is going to be essentially all the to-dos that we get back. And then we have the presented to-dos, which I'm actually going to show based off of what the filter state is right over here in the simulator. So let's go back down, and now we shouldn't have a problem for our to-dos list. The only thing that we're missing is what happens when we select that checkbox, and that's what it's complaining about. So right now, what I'll do is I'll simply comment this out so I don't forget about it, because it's already hard enough to keep track of everything that I'm doing, and I don't want to introduce any more bugs than necessary. But what we'll do is we'll just simply comment that out for the second, and we won't do anything when we tap that marker. So now we can add this to-dos list view into the actual build method, which is what is essentially building out our UI. So instead of doing just showing this empty to-dos view, I actually want to change this to be a builder. What do I want to change? I can't think right now. Hold on, let me check my notes. Sorry. Yeah, just a builder. Yeah, I don't know why it seemed foreign to me. That's
Kyle,
then
you stare long enough at any word and it starts to look at you back a little weirdly. So don't worry about it. We've all been there.
okay, yeah, like I'm just blanking on some of this stuff. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna check if the to-dos list, right? That's our list of to-dos is empty. Now, if it is empty, then we'll just simply once again show our empty to-dos screen, just as we did before. And that's one of the things I don't like about Dart. We're back to semicolons, you know, the hide and seek experts of the world. And then if we do have to-dos, then we'll show our list view. So we have our list, our to-dos list view like that. So semicolon, and then we need to make sure that we're specifying return on both of these. So now, as you can see, it's still once again following this very declarative pattern, because every time the state changes, what Flutter is going to do is it's going to run this build statement. It's going to go through here and it's going to check the state. So we're going to see, is it empty or not? And then it's going to determine what we're going to show. There's also the floating action button, which is going to be responsible for creating that new to-do and bringing that view into play. Let's go ahead and add that in here too, which can be passed in under, I might be at the wrong level, which, let's see, floating action button. So then we could just say floating action button, which is the function that we have down here. And right now it's not showing anything, but we will get that going in a bit. Let's see if we'll be able to do it without that. All right, so if I save it now, let's take a look at the build method. If I save it now, everything does look correct to me. So if I save it, so a couple of things should happen. This will still say no to-dos because we haven't queried data store yet, and we haven't created anything yet. This is like a fresh backend. So if I save it, we should see the little floating action button down there. Bam, like that. And even animated in, that's so cool. But anyway, what we want to do is we want to get the functionality going for this floating action button, because as you can see, it doesn't have a view to actually render out right here. So now in our floating action button, we need to return this create to do view. And I don't think that we have that implemented yet. So I'll add that in. Create new to do view is what I called it. We don't have the save functionality yet, but this is the view that we're going to build out, and I'll go over that right now. I just want to make sure that it's returned. So as you can see, this is another function that I created that just builds out this widget. All it's going to do is it's going to have a couple of values inside of this column. A column, goes up and down. It allows you to stack widgets on top of each other visually. So we're going to have the text field, which is going to allow the user to enter in some whatever they want to call their text field or whatever they want to call their to-do. And then also the button, which is going to be responsible for not only triggering this view that we're going to be showing to go away, but it's also going to be responsible for saving the data. Now, we don't have this save to do function implemented yet, which is going to be actually the first part that we actually do with Amplify. I'm showing you guys all this Flutter stuff, but this is supposed to be about Amplify. I'm sorry. Let me know if I need to skip around a little bit quicker, but
silly Flutter, but relevant front end question for everyone who's ever done this. Does Flutter do the secret formula for centering a div or centering that button within the column for us?
So like centering the actual widget?
Yeah, no, it was a bad joke about how some of the easiest things like centering an object or a widget are extremely difficult, seemingly, if you try to do it from scratch. But I'm hoping that Flutter does that. I guess we'll see that once the app renders.
So Flutter is actually all widget based. Everything is a widget. Like as you can see, that's why it kind of looks similar to HTML in regards to like these pyramids of doom in a sense. But like you have like this actual center widget, like the widget itself is called center. And then it puts whatever the child is in the center. So then we have the column, but then also inside the column, you can determine like whether like it's going to be in the center or the top or the bottom and things like that. But if I save it and then I hit new to do, we can actually see this view being rendered now. So now if I were to like type something in and I were to save it, now we don't have the save functionality, but we do have the, the pop, which is going to make the screen go away, and then also the clearing of this text. So we do that, and then nothing seems to happen right now until we actually save our to do. So down here at the bottom, I generally like to keep like all my functionality at the bottom. I don't know, it's an iOS thing. So what we'll do is we're actually going to create the save to do method, right? And this is going to essentially do only like really a few lines of code, because Amplify is so easy to use. It's crazy how easy it is. Like compared to all the UI lines that have been written, we only need to have essentially like 2 lines to really save a to do. So in this function, you can see what we're doing is we're creating a new to do object. And once again, that's the object that was auto-generated for us from the Amplify Admin UI. Right, so this is our to-do model, and it's just being imported here. And it only requires that we pass in the body and then the is complete status, right? So when you're creating it, obviously it's going to be false. And then we're just passing in whatever the user has entered in. Now, in regards to the ID, that's automatically generated for us. We don't need to worry about that. Really cool. And then this is an asynchronous function. It's going to take, milliseconds to complete, but yeah, it is asynchronous. It's not going to be synchronous. So we are going to await for the results, and then we'll save that to do. Now, if we were to do this right now, we would save the to do, but we wouldn't be notified that something happened, right? So what we want to also do is we want to make sure that we're observing. We want to observe any changes in the to do. In the actual to-do table in our data store. So we'll do observe like this. And this function is meant to specifically observe a stream of events. So as you can see, we're able to simply create a stream to watch over, and it's specifically just watching for anything that's happening with the to-do object, whether it's on this device or it's happening and being pushed into the back end. And then whenever that happens, we're going to be doing this get to do. So this is going to be the query against data storage to get all of our to-dos. And I'll show you that as well. So we have this, and I mean, these functions are extremely small. I mean, they look a little bit bigger because I did add in a couple of like comments, but they're all like 2 lines of code just to get things done, and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. But before we go on, I want to make sure I understand this fully. So, typically people have to work with the underlying API for whatever storage layer they have, or an API gateway that they've written to front that and handle this, or maybe it's, calling your GraphQL server. We've basically said here in using the Amplify library here, okay, here's fetching the data in 1 line, irrespective of how it's stored in the back end. And then down below, you dropped in 1 line of code that does bidirectional syncing, regardless of whether the data changes on the client locally or whether it's changing on the back end. And that's it. There's no like polling that has to be set up. There's no like pub sub model that has to be set up. It just does that automatically with the data store.
That's the cool thing about Amplify. It just works. Like a lot of people will say things about a lot of things, but this literally just works. You put in a couple of lines of code and bam, you're set. Like we're listening to this stream, and then whenever we receive an event, we're just going to simply get the to-dos and see if there's any difference, like just update to the latest.
Awesome.
And so this is so just want to be 100% clear, right? Because you have amplified data store. This is the abstraction that is dealing with the local device rights and the stuff that Ashish mentioned earlier, which is the differences between the available local databases on your different applications across different platforms. There are various implementations. We've abstracted all of that, right? And even down to like when the device has intermittent network access, we've taken care of all of that.
Yes. So just like maybe a little bit of a low level small dive, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Ashish, but from my understanding, what data store is doing on like Flutter and on native devices as well is they're generally working with a SQLite database locally. I think that's correct. And then what AppSync does under the hood for us is it watches and observes those changes and like kind of takes care of those differences in changes. So whenever there's a create, update, or delete or anything like that, all that stuff is synced under the hood. So you're working with data directly locally, and that's why everything moves so quickly. And then what's actually going over the network is the sync between the changes.
So there's actually two parts of this that are so cool to me that like are, I think, almost like understated. The first of which is like, you don't like, we talk about undifferentiated heavy lifting, and I think the more that we run this show, Rob and I come to realize that that means a lot more than just not managing your physical infrastructure. In this case, to me, an example here is like just doing offline like retries, right? Exponential back off. Like, this is something that no matter what application you have or what it does, like the best practices of this are probably undifferentiated for your business, and the Amplify library is doing that automatically. Without you having to have to mess around or test with any of that. And the second is, like sort of this, don't assume that you might lose connection, or sorry, don't wonder about when or how often you'll lose connection. Assume that you'll have intermittent connectivity, and back your data, not just in memory, but if it's in some sort of, local database that can store that directly on device, you don't have to worry about your data completely disappearing because you didn't have data connectivity for enough time until connectivity was restored, right? So you have this like, Amplify is like hardening your local persistence, it seems, as well as just taking care of all of the extremely difficult bits of making this intermittent connectivity sync problem, or the difficult parts of having intermittent connectivity for syncing. Like, it seems like this is really just a value add at every part of the data and state management for mobile apps.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that sums it up great.
Right? It's the local data, it's the distributed data in the cloud, it's the sync, once you're going from offline to online, and the conflict resolution stuff as well. Like, it's really handling a lot of the stuff for you. And at the same time, like, even in terms of your data model, right? Like, there's stuff, for example, just the to-dos in this case, but you can have relationships as well, like posts and comments. You can have, all kinds of things that conform to your needs. But then again, you're focusing on, your business value proposition, not really on, these things that are supposed to be undifferentiated and can be handled for you with best practices baked in.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to go back over to where we were at. So what we want to do is, well, we have the save to do. So now we can like uncomment that, right? We can actually save the to do in our view. Where is it? Let's see, save. It should be in the create new to do right here. So now whenever we hit that plus, we'll be able to actually save it. But right now we're actually not observing because we never called that. So up here at the top, as soon as this object, this state object is created, what we want to do is we want to actually start observing. We want to do a query, right? We want to get anything that's already existing, but then we also want to observe anything that may come along after we've already built out our app. So we'll do, I can't remember if I have a command for it, but I'll just, I'll do this myself. So it's pretty simple. All we need to do is get our to-dos when this app first launches, right? So we'll call get to do, simple as that. And this is an asynchronous function, which means that we can, like I said, it's going to take some time for us to complete. And then what we want to do is after that is we actually want to make sure that we're observing the to-dos. So after we get the to-dos, then we can start observing those to-dos as well, anything that's new. So now with all that done, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a hot restart so that we can get like a fresh, everything's fresh and make sure that we're observing and everything like that. And let's see, did something go wrong? Yeah, let's go ahead and stop it and let's run this one more time. All right, may need it. I think I had to do like a complete restart. Sometimes when you're working with Flutter, if you change too much state, what ends up happening is that you end up in this weird situation because it is trying to hang on to your state in a lot of situations, but if you change too much stuff, it just you just kind of have to go back all the way from the start and like go through a fresh run. All right, looks like it's done. Looks like it's loading. And let's see if we could get that no to-dos. All right, perfect. So now we should have everything in order to get up and running. So now if I do, typical developer, because just I'm not creative right now. If we do save, then we see that, bam, it's right there. So really, really cool stuff. All right, well, I mean, that's cool and all, but like, who cares? Because anybody could create it to do, right? So let's try to run it on Android, the same app. And I have my device right here, and hopefully everything will work. Oh, it's not going to work if I can't sign in. All right, so this one does take a little bit longer to run on my device. It's just a test device. It's not that great. So let's see, did I actually get it to, did I start running it? I don't think I ran it yet. So now we have my Android device selected, and this is my real device. I don't know if I could pull it up. I don't want to risk getting it disconnected, but it's right here, the real device. And what I want to do is I want to show the fact that we should be able to sync the data. Now, while this runs and loads, let's actually go back over to our console. Sessions. All right, let's see. I don't even know if it's any of these. I think this one actually got deployed to Ohio. And here we go. So we open up the admin UI. And assuming that everything worked as expected, what we should actually be able to see is that we have our to-dos right here, or our single to-do, assuming that we were able to do it. So yeah, our very uncreational way of doing that. We can see that the to-do has actually been synced in the backend. My Android device is still going through it. It's a little bit slow, but let me open up this app again.
While the oh yeah, if you wanted to show something on iOS, we could do that while we're waiting for the Android. Otherwise, I had some stuff I wanted to talk to here in the admin UI, but I'll let you pick, Kyle.
Well, I just want to show this awesomeness right here. Bam! Look at that. Oof. Did you see it? Did you see it? Because I could do it again. I'd love to do it again. Let me do it again.
Hold on, it went too quickly, Kyle. You're gonna have to run that one by me again.
Watch this check mark. Oh, hold on just a second, because it's gonna be about to blow this mind. So as you can see, our hello world is right there. This is my real device on the left. This is the Android device. This is the iOS device. Modifying the data in the admin UI, and right now I'm going to set it to is complete, set to false. Save it. Oh, it didn't save. Hold on. I got too cocky with it. That's what happened. It's like, oh, you want to be cocky now on live stream? I don't think so. Let's try that again. Okay, it doesn't want to do it. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just do it on this device over here. So or I could actually click on it right here. So I'm going to click on it right here. And let's see if it's taking the interaction. I might have to do it with my finger. So let me do it over here. Looks like it's not working. So I got too cocky with it. Not really sure why. Oh, you know what it is? It's the fact that I actually haven't added in the update. So there was a part where I actually commented it out up over here. And that's why you don't be cocky on live streams, because it's going to turn around and bite you. And the live stream gods just don't like that. So I apologize and I repent for these live streaming sins.
It's right okay. Here. We can clip it when it works here in just a second. So all of the people who tuned in live get the real experience, but everyone else gets the.
Yeah, just make me look like I'm a rock star and I knew what I was doing the entire time. That would be awesome. Okay, I think I need to restart this. This is this change I don't think took effect. So what we want to do is we actually have this shows. Oh no, this isn't even the one. Let me see. This wasn't the one that I wanted to change. The one that I wanted to change was in the to-dos view, and it was when we do the update. So when I click, it's this one right here. So this is what I was looking for. And I don't think, let's see, what am I missing here? Oh, it's this. My bad. That's all me. And this is actually missing. So we actually need to add in this functionality right here. So update to do's completion status. So we'll do td update to do completion status. So as you can see here, what we're going to do is we're going to just do an update. So this is the same code that we kind of saw back over there in the admin UI. We're taking the instance of the to do, and then we're going to make a copy of it. The reason why we're going to make a copy of it is because the update functionality is the same as creation functionality. And all we're doing is we're saving data to an object with the same ID. So we're only modifying the is complete to the new value. And then that's going to just run this save. So now, hopefully, I can pretend like I know what I'm doing and I can run it again and everything will work. We'll see what happens. Let's put this back on the simulator. I'm going to actually have to run it on both if I want to be able to have the functionality, but we'll run it on the simulator first. I think it's actually a little bit faster when I do it on the simulator. But let's see if we can also get this going over here. I would like to show you the awesomeness that is admin UI.
Yeah, so while we were waiting for that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about admin UI, because anyone who's new to Amplify will certainly want to hear about that. So like, I think that as an AWS user, one of the common pieces of feedback that I have is that it's often difficult to track in my AWS account all of my pieces of infrastructure with respect to a single project that I'm working on, because that like project level abstraction is not there in the way maybe I would like it to be. But what we see in the admin UI here for Amplify is like project and application is essentially like a top level entity, or like a first class citizen here. And so it's easy to just see the data, the functions, like any of the I don't know if API was or auth, right? All these different constituent components all in one place, because all you're looking at are the aspects to this one project.
Yeah, they're actively building out this and making it much more, like we have all these different categories, but like they're going to continue to iterate and make it even better and easier and seamless to work with as they go forward, as the Amplify, the admin UI team kind of moves forward. But yeah, so now we have it and we should have the functionality to actually update the to-do. Let's see if I know what I'm doing and tap it over here on the real device on the Android.
Drum roll.
Get that, bam. I do know what I'm doing.
There we go.
I'm not a sham. Imposter syndrome is gone.
Defeated.
So
out the window.
So that kind of shows. That just kind of shows that we are syncing data that's live right here. Let's see if I could save it this time. Bam.
Oh, okay. Beautiful.
So I guess I do know what I'm doing.
So for everyone that's been following along, or maybe they jumped in midway, what you are showing right here is on the left, we have the console, which is essentially like your cloud infrastructure, the golden source of truth where your data lives on the back end. We have your physical device there in the middle, which is an Android phone. And then we have your simulator on the same computer for an iOS device. And you're showing that, in the past, about 40-ish minutes, a little more than that, we now have real-time syncing of our data directly from the Amplify Flutter libraries.
Absolutely. So we're running on iOS and Android using our Flutter code, and we were able to get the syncing between all of this done in relatively short amount of time, minus the errors. But you won't be making errors when you're coding, I promise you.
I just want to point out
what they say about live demos, right?
That's the thing.
They say that a live demo without at least 3 crashes is considered a dull affair.
Dothraki demos. Okay.
I just want to point out one thing, like how much time we spend to actually get the UI working, the state management for your local app, right? Even forget persistence, just in memory and rendering the view of that to do. That was actually most of the time, and like the whole. Actual local persistence, the syncing, even just like creating your models and stuff like that. It's like super fast when actually you would spend so much time getting that set up, especially as a mobile developer, right? Like you almost don't have to think how that happened, which is so powerful and really good for like validating your, MVPs and all of that.
Yeah, just for
Yeah.
context, like we're down here at 150, and this is mostly UI related stuff, right? 150 lines of code of like UI related stuff, and it's still generally small, right? But in regards to functionality to get up and running in with the backend and like having like you know, the ability to toggle the is complete value, you know, the update, the query, the read, I guess, observing, and the create, that's less than 50 lines of code right there. And there's comments in there.
Yeah, that's what I want to sort of double down on. It's like all of the local plumbing for just setting up the views and such, you know, that took a lot of the time. And then literally in 1 or 2 lines, I know you said 50 lines sort of end to end with all the indentations and new lines and such, but like setting real-time updating in a bidirectional fashion for data with an upstream source, 1 line of code there before. And all of the, you know, the sending your data, you have a little bit of error handling in there, so it blows it out from 1 line to, you know, 5 or 7 or so. It's just one operation in the Amplify Flutter library. And like when I think about solving a problem, you can't reduce it much more than that. You know, a line of code is probably the most atomic object you can have at this level of abstraction. So super nifty. And for anyone who has an existing application with Flutter, I'd imagine they don't have to start from scratch here, right? They can install you know, the Amplify CLI, and they can get to work with just dropping in these connectors to the Amplify backend, and they can spin up those resources with the admin UI.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, like I was like, this is definitely only like 2 lines of code to get things working, you know. I could have taken out some of the error handling, but I wasn't that cocky, right? So you know, I wanted to be a little bit safe. You know, it is a live demo. I want to be able to figure out things if they go down. But yes, it is like very little lines of code. If you already have an existing project, now you're already going to have like the to-do object, right? You're already going to have that. So what you could either do is you could either like call it something else. You could call it like, I don't know, wire to do, right? It's coming down from the wire or something like that. Or you could just replace all your instances with like you can model the to do exactly how you have it modeled currently, and then just swap it out. It could be as easy as just changing the import statements. So yeah.
I have a question from the LinkedIn Live audience for Kyle. Can you talk a little bit about app and user roles with respect to data store? And before you begin, don't worry, you've already won the gold medal for most code written on the What's Next show. Just maybe explain a little bit about like how you could separate like application level permissions or you know, like role-based access for you know, if we've added auth, what how can we use the auth of the user to modify the permissions of the application to then grab from our underlying data store?
Yeah, so what we did here was this was like all like public data, right? And no user needs to be logged in. And actually, a downfall of this particular demo is the fact that if I were to put this out on the App Store or Play Store, then you know everybody has the same to-dos, and we're all working with the same data. So what we would do is we would essentially add in. Well, we already have the auth category added in, and what we could do is we can build out a relationship where we're actually storing the user object in our schema. So what we would actually do is we'd go back over to Amplify Admin UI. We would go to data, and then we would do something like this where we just add a new model, and then we have a user, and then you know, a user has like a name or something like that, and name is required, and we can like build this relationship. So what I could do is I could build a relationship to the user. It's going to be a to-do only has one user, so a one-to-one relationship. And what we can do is, bam, like that relationship's already built. And the way that I could display the to-dos would be essentially doing a query based off of the to-dos where the user ID is equal to the person that has actually signed in, right? So now we're only working with user specific to-dos and things like that. And then in regards to like going further than that, there's like a lot of stuff that you can do in Auth. Like I said, I come from a mobile iOS background. I don't know a whole lot about Cognito, but I think that speaks to the volumes of the amount of ease it is to go to get up and running. I think Ashish might actually have a better handle on providing even further details about this.
Right. So I can say that, if you go to the schema for a second, Kyle, you can see, I think it will show you something that we call the Auth directive, and it will say there public.
The
The
actual
GraphQL
schema,
schema
right?
in the backend, yeah.
I'll find it.
There it is, schema.graphql. So you see there, it says @auth and the rule says allow public. So in this case, it's all public authorization, which means basically anyone can get, create, whatever. But you have all kinds of, a lot of options here, which you can actually view on our documentation site in the CLI docs under the auth directives. So for example, like if you wanted to do owner-based auth, right, where it's like, kind of similar to Instagram or Twitter, where I create my tweet or post, and only I can create it or update it or delete it, but I can enable read for everybody, right? So everybody can view that, but they can't actually read it. Of course, there's like UI logic on that, like you can actually click the button, but the service won't allow you to do it, right? Because it's all ultimately being applied on AppSync. But then there's also stuff like group-based stuff, for example, or admin-based stuff, for example, there are certain things which I may want to delete because I think it's inappropriate for the platform that I can then have the ability to do, but no other user can. So if I'm an admin of this platform or the application that is being built, then I have the authorization to do CRUD on everything, whereas like a regular user who's not the owner of the post would only be able to view it or read it. So all of that is possible using the auth directives, and I would recommend checking out the documentation for that and playing with it a little bit more to determine what kind of access you need for your application.
Awesome. And if you're tuning in on Twitch, we've got a link in the chat right there to the authentication options for the GraphQL transformer right there. So basically what I'm hearing is that if you want to do role-based access control for data at either the user application level, that's entirely possible here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, Kyle, do you have any other tricks or rabbits or animals that are going to come out of your sleeves at this point?
I was planning on doing a second demo, but I think that we kind of covered a lot in this demo, and another demo just opens me up to looking kind of foolish, So let's stop while I'm on a good note, and let's leave it right there. But feel free to reach out to me. I'll also probably post the second demo, the storage version of Amplify, and I'll go through that on my own YouTube channel, or if you just stick around and continue to watch the Amplify team, I'm sure that you're going to catch the storage demo as well somewhere.
Just
Great.
for this demo though, you can show the filtered view, right, which you built out already.
Yeah.
Stuff across and create some with checked and unchecked, which is really awesome.
Ashish, what do you mean? You don't like looking at a list of every to-do you've ever cleared in your entire life? That doesn't motivate you?
There we
I'm
go.
not able to clear most of my to-do, so I'm just looking for something real.
So what I can do, I actually have to build in that functionality, and I didn't actually update it. So that's over here in the to-do view. And then whenever we check on this, we are observing, I kind of lost my train of thought, so I don't really remember where it's at, but let's see if we could get it going real quick.
I saw the UI and I was like, it's probably there, but maybe the snippet is not there, but it really shows you the ability to filter and what you can do with these fields, and having things sync across is really powerful.
Yeah, but this was actually more of like a Flutter specific feature anyways. Like even on the Android, which is now it locked, but even if I were to do a filter over here and I was able to get it working, it wouldn't filter over here. That was just not something that was actually built in. I mean, it could be added in, right? We could just like have something in regards to the view, and we can actually create an object that represents that, so that you can actually save user settings, right? And persist those across devices and things like that. But yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought, so I don't really know
No
which
problem, no
area
problem.
I wouldn't worry about it.
that
Yeah.
functionality is in.
Well,
But you saw that it showed up even though the app was in the background and it was a lock screen and stuff. So like, these are all
Yeah.
things that people trip over when they implement this kind of real-time use cases and whatnot. So it's really very powerful and kind of gets you started really quickly and easily.
Yeah, I mean, more than getting started, from everything that I've seen today, the Amplify Flutter libraries solve just the entire problem end to end of trying to do that real time data syncing. It's not just I'm off to the races and I'm a few steps ahead. I feel like if I were to go make it a mobile app tomorrow, this entire set of problems is now just solved for me.
And I would agree with that, but I would say just at the very basis, like I think that this makes a case that it's worth trying. I think that at the bare minimum, this is definitely worth trying. See if it can speed up your workflow. Great introduction to Flutter, great introduction to Amplify, great introduction to AWS all around. Like there's a lot of stuff that you can learn doing something like this, and it's extremely powerful to not only be able to have one code base and render out UI, but also to have a backend that works across platforms like that and is real time and things like that. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm blown away. I mean, I learned so much in the demo today. Thank you so much, Kyle and Ashish. And Kyle, especially you. I mean, thank you for subjecting yourself to the crucible of live Twitch coding. Kiwi Starfish from Twitch chat says Kyle did a great job. I couldn't agree more. This is some
100%.
exciting stuff. Congratulations.
You hear that, Ashish? You guys get to build it out and I get to take all the credit. So there it is.
Well, congratulations to you and the team for hitting GA with such an awesome feature. Open roadmap development. The issues on GitHub. If you want to see the history of how this whole thing evolved, I don't know of any example that speaks customer obsession better than that. Right? Customers asked for it. Customers got exactly what they wanted. So, and it's amazing to see how fluid this entire thing comes together end to end. And there's so much that we haven't even talked about, right? Just imagine, I think the question that is not asked here is like, okay, well, you see this thing that works really well, but this is actually decades of evolution of full stack app development under the hood here, right? I mean, even something as simple as the type safe model file that you generated from GraphQL, even something like that used to be what, like RPC, SOAP based, or it used to be JSON, and you're just passing data back and forth and, kind of wishing that a property has a certain type that you want. Right. I mean, there's just so much stuff here that I wish we had much more time to get into. But, we've been talking for a long time. I think it's, like you said, Kyle, best to end on a high note here where we've got a really cool focused demo going on. But this is so cool, guys.
Totally agree with that. And I just want to mention, like, follow Kyle on YouTube because there's like a 30 days of Flutter going on right now. And Kyle has been posting content consistently and he will cover a lot more use cases with Amplify Flutter and just Flutter in general to help you kind of, get acquainted with the platform. So definitely do that. And, it's really valuable. Like I also tune into those just to kind of improve my UI building chops as well. So if you want to see more of Kyle, plug your YouTube channel.
Like I said at the beginning, you can find me anywhere with the name Kilo Loco. That's KILO space LOCO, and that's going to be YouTube, my website, Twitter, Instagram, like all the major social media platforms, and then you'll be able to find your way to me some way, somehow.
Awesome. And, I dropped a link into the Twitch chat for everyone over there so they can find you. Hopefully you get a few new followers from this. But in this victory lap here, is there anywhere else we should direct some folks to if they're either exploring Amplify? I know there's, not only the GitHub repos, but you guys have a Discord server from what I know. Where else can we send folks to hear more?
Discord. I would say number one is Discord. Like if you have any trouble, like the awesome thing about the Discord is that you can actually chat like with the engineers, but also it's like the community itself is actually growing. And then we have people that just regular devs that are just constantly helping other devs. So it's a really great community. So I would definitely recommend hitting up the Discord. Any other places that you would recommend, Ashish?
Yeah, Discord for sure. And then, for feature requests or issues and whatnot, kind of with the detailed breakdown, would definitely recommend GitHub. Like, let us know any feedback over there, either on the RFCs or create new issues and feature requests, questions. We're there to kind of answer all that. And the docs website, I think we've shared that as well. And the AWS Amplify Twitter handle, definitely follow that. And you can also reach out to me on Twitter directly if you have questions. So that's also like an option. It's at the Ashish Nanda on Twitter. You'll find the whole team there basically, so you can always reach out to us and we'll help you out.
Awesome. And we have some of our Rob and myself have our Twitter handles here on the screen, but I'm going to drop another message in Twitch chat with all 4 of our Twitter handles. So awesome, guys. This was super great. Again, for returning guests of the show, this was a little bit of a different format today. We went down from a large number of guests and got to really dive deep on this launch today. And I think it really shows, right? We, in about 2 hours here, I'm seeing on the clock, we're able to talk about everything here with the Amplify Flutter launch, who this is going to be valuable for, and at the end of the second hour, we have this fully working cross-platform app and demo, and the sample code for this, I'm sure, is available somewhere, right? Either Kyle on your GitHub repo, or maybe on the Amplify parent repo.
Yeah, I'll have to shoot you over the email or the link, but yes, it is available on my personal repo. I just gotta find it.
Awesome.
I think it's at GitHub under what's next.
Wonderful.
All right, let me find somewhere to share this with you.
No worries. I think.
Can I share it in? Let me see. I'm trying to find the what's next in Slack. There it is. Okay.
Awesome. And we will get that also thrown in chat. So lots of links, lots of resources. And for folks that are interested in implementing this now, upwards of a 2-hour walkthrough with bugs and all included, no editing out the hairy bits. This is really what it takes, even with a tool as amazing as Amplify, to get something like this done. But again, alternative being something much more painful, taking a lot more time. And if there's one little highlight, I know it's just such a small snippet of this entire stream, but it is, the admin UI, walking through how quickly we can model our data there and adding another relationship. Anyone who's familiar with databases and in some scenarios, it is significantly more difficult to alter your schema down the road when you want to add another, flavor to your data model, let's say. But then additionally, when we have the nuts and bolts and the internal plumbing of the app all set up, we just had a few lines of code to do all the two-way data syncing, the data puts, and all the other standard CRUD operations, and that's all handled now natively with the Amplify Flutter libraries. Did I get all that right?
Yes.
Yep.
Only thing it doesn't come with is my awesome commentary. So apologize for that. We're working on something.
Well, if folks are looking for that, they can file an issue on the on the Amplify JavaScript repo, and depending on how many upvotes it gets, we will prioritize accordingly.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, Kyle, Ashish, it's been a real pleasure. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for this demo.